keep finding ways that we're helping partners finding either, balance in their life or focus or purpose.
Practices that are going to help improve your project management skills or your finances.
We're here to talk about setting long-term goals and then how to achieve them.
Increasing your quality, therefore becoming the best place in town to work.
Welcome to Academy Live.
Sell, sell, sell. We have all heard it before. Now, what makes a good salesperson? How has selling in today's day and age evolved? Do you think you're a good salesperson? Well, on today's show, we'll have Jeremy Nelson, Sales Coaching Manager. You'll get his take on all the things selling and hopefully learn some tricks of the trade. But before we get into all of that, Rex and Chris, I want to know about your experience with selling. So, can you tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, how good of a salesperson do you think you are? Rex, we'll start with you.
Oh my gosh, I'm probably a 7. I don't know. I got to tell you, growing up on the technical side of the house, I didn't really understand selling. I don't even know if I initially had a lot of respect for it. But what I really learned is to partner up with selling. And, when you partner up with somebody that's a professional salesperson, some amazing things happen. I remember at Northwest Computer Support having these events. Like we did this event at a bowling alley to try to get salespeople and engineers to talk to each other. So we laid out like this crazy event where we said, okay, one salesperson and one engineer, you're together now. And it was crazy things like, you have to put a blindfold on one and guide the other one through throwing the ball and that kind of thing. And like, it did a lot to build that bond between sales and later on in my career, I was really, I felt like, man, I could probably run a business. I was a number 2 person of the company for, 20 years of my career. And I was like, I think I could do this, but where would I ever get a client? Right. And it was like a holdback for me starting my own business for, years. And, it's interesting as an accidental entrepreneur starting the business, I don't really remember ever selling anything. As a matter of fact, I was looking at it the other day, in the coaching side of Pax8 Academy, from C-level through Pax8 Academy, we have like 670 contracts we've signed with companies to do coaching. And I can't ever remember actually doing any selling, which I think is pretty cool. So I don't know, Chris, what do you think?
I think that as the owner, it's amazing what you can make up for with. I say for me, the lack of sales ability, I overcompensated for with enthusiasm. And I think that you are just love what you do. You're passionate, and you don't even think about it as selling. I absolutely agree with that. The one benefit I think that I had was that I think I made every mistake that we talk about or that we see as a business owner. All the things I can look back in my career and think, oh yeah, I did that wrong. I did that. I didn't do that right. But the great thing is that it was an evolution. And I bet, Rex, that you would agree that who you are as a quote unquote salesperson, even though you say you never felt like you were selling when you started, to, even halfway through 5 years, let alone 10 years later, your approach, your communication, what you presented, how you did it was very different. Would you agree?
Oh, there's a lot of confidence that comes with doing it for a while, and having confidence in the product that you're delivering. I've always really believed that an MSP owner, really, no matter how bad the service delivery is, they can sell through it because they believe that it's going to get better, right? But if you got a salesperson that you ask to go sell, if they're not confident in that service delivery, that lack of confidence is going to show through, and they're going to have a hard time closing business, right?
Big difference. Absolutely.
Definitely. And you hit on one thing, Rex. So, what makes a good salesperson's confidence? What's another thing? What are some characteristics that make someone a good salesperson?
Mhm.
I had this situation come up just a few days ago. A client or a prospect, we provided them a contract, and they came back and said, my attorney looked at your contract, and here's all this, red ink spilled all over it, where they wanted it to be different, right? And
Oh
really, it was
no.
just confidence, right? Where I said to the partner, it's like, hey, here's your first free coaching lesson. Never change your contract, right? Like, we're not going to change our contract. I have no facility to manage how I would deliver if all of my clients had different contracts. I'm just not going to do that. It's
Mhm.
okay with me if you choose not to do business with us because you don't want to sign this contract. And, it was like 45 minutes later, the signed contract came through, right? And
That's huge.
that's kind of
I love
what I'm. Yeah.
But and I want to, Bessie, I'm going to turn this back on you because again, that small print and other duties as assigned, you didn't anticipate, you know. So, how would you rate yourself in a matter of being a good salesperson?
Well, I think for me, you're right. I joined in this role, and I was like, okay, great. I'm title partner educator. That doesn't involve anything with selling. And then the first week, Chris, you were like, so it's going to be your responsibility to get at least 50 partners in seats in courses each month. And I was like, what? That's not my job. That's not, dude. Like, I didn't think I
No,
don't know how to sell. I don't know how to do anything.
but my
But for
confidence in
me,
I sold you on that, right? That was that confidence of you can do this, you can sell this.
exactly, and I think it really I would say that first day, I would have rated myself a 2, but now I would say I'm getting up to maybe 6 or maybe 7, to
Okay.
really get up there and it's all about, again, that, like, enthusiasm, as you said, in what we're selling and getting the word out and making sure that our amazing sales team that we have at Pax8 knows what our offering is and can explain its benefits to, our partners, so, uh, I really appreciate you turning that back on me. I know we have some fun stories too, but maybe we'll save those for the very end about, our history with selling. And I know each one of us, has sold some interesting things in the past. Like I used to sell handmade hats in high school. And then Chris, what did you used to sell?
Oh, I had a job where I ended up selling trinkets is what I'll call it at a wrestling arena match. I had to walk up and down the stands with the thing, with the foam finger and I felt so ridiculous. I hated that experience, but yeah, that was probably at the bottom of my job experiences, especially related to selling. I could skip past that. Rex, any stories?
Probably two come to mind. One I'm going to share was, I don't know, I was probably 12 or 13 years old, and I had the paper route, right? And the only way you get papers on your paper route is to go door to door and try to convince people to buy
Mm.
the Orange County Register. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh my gosh, thanks for sharing about that, Rex. So, I want to move on to our next segment, which is going to focus on Beyond. And you're going to hear us talk about Beyond quite a bit up until the day of the event. So, I want to just give you a quick update of what it is and just so you know a little bit about it. So, Pax8 Beyond is our inaugural partner event that's happening this June. And what is Beyond? It's a 3-day conference in Denver, Colorado, June 11th through 13th. It's 3 days of immersive learning and innovation created by and for our community. It'll be a user conference, so that means that there is something for everyone, including owners, service managers, engineers, sales and marketing professionals, and security experts. So for more information or to sign up, please go to pax8beyond.com or check the link on our YouTube channel. Now, Rex and Chris, please I know that you're both hosting sessions. I won't be hosting the sessions, but I'll be there and I'll be talking to partners at the booth and I'll be running around. But I know both of you are hosting sessions. So, Chris, why don't we start with you? Can you tell us a little bit about the sessions that you'll be hosting at Beyond?
Yeah, I first I'm going to be doing a panel, which I love moderating panels and getting input from several people. But we're going to be talking about gaining efficiency, streamlining your tools, optimizing what you're using in your business, how they're configured, and that's that should be a lot of fun. Like I said, it'll be a panel. And then the other presentation, along with Brian Davies, executive coach, is going to be about it's getting the purpose of your company and establishing your mission, your vision, your values. And those of you that know me know that I will get on a soapbox about this topic at the drop of a hat. It's one of my favorite things to talk about and really do. I've seen the impact of it, so I'm really excited to really spend time talking about identifying values and setting your purpose for your company identity. Rex, how about you?
I think I'm taking part in 3 sessions. One of them, the first one's a panel session about leadership and kind of developing leadership in your company as it grows. Doing that with a couple of great partners. Eric Hoffmaster is a partner that'll be on that panel. And then Ron Losevsky and I are doing a session about growing the business through the different plateaus that you reach. You get to $1 million, you're kind of stuck there for a while, and then you get to 3 million, you're kind of stuck there for a while. So Ron and I are going to talk about how you push through those plateaus, and then David Shaffron is going to join me, and we're going to do a session about understanding what you want your evaluation of your business to be at some point in the future, and what you need to do now to get your business to have that valuation at whatever that point is in the future. So really looking forward to doing those sessions. I tell you, there's probably, I think it's 16 of the Academy coaches are involved in doing the sessions at Academy. So this is going to be sessions that are brought to you by the people that are in the trenches doing this work. So it should be good.
We'll be talking
I'm
about that
looking
a lot
forward
more next week.
Mm-hmm. I'm really looking forward to it. I just, the preparation that's been going on, all the things we've done with the coaches, the sessions, the planning, the energy from the Academy team has just been very, very exciting. But if it's okay, I'd like to bring on our guest. We have Jeremy Nelson. Jeremy, I'd like to welcome you to Academy Live.
I'm honored to be here, Chris. I'm very excited. Thanks for inviting me.
Glad you could make it. Hey, why don't you start off? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Give us a little Jeremy picture.
Wait a minute. Glad I could make it? Rex said I had to show. I didn't know it was a choice.
Yes.
Voluntold, we
All
call
right.
that.
That's right.
Leave that part out. Can we edit that?
Hey, what can I say? All right. No, I appreciate it. But all right. So a little bit about myself. I've done a lot of things in my life, but the things that really matter to the people who I hope are watching this are that I ran my own MSP for 20 years. And I was an owner salesman. So I got big enough to hire salespeople and I trained them up, but I was always kind of more a native salesperson than a tech, which actually, if you ever wanted anything fixed at my shop and it wasn't getting fixed fast enough, all I had to do was threaten to get towards it. And every other tech was like, no, we'll take care of it. Please don't touch it.
Hey, how many of Jeremy's engineers does it take to fix a problem?
Oh God. All right, Rex, how many?
Just one, but he never hired him.
Oh,
no.
Oh boy. Oof, rough. All right. So after I sold it, my wife immediately said I was too young to retire and she didn't want me around the house. So I immediately got a job working out of the house, which she said I was cheating. But that job was a salesperson for a major hardware manufacturer. And I tell 2 quick ideas about it. One, it was a very small territory. It only included 26 countries and 1 state. So I owned everything in Latin America, from Mexico all the way to Argentina, Brazil, the Caribbean, and the state of Florida. And another thing I tell you is, no, I don't speak any Spanish or Portuguese. So how good a salesperson am I that somebody gave me that job? All right. I was actually very successful. I took that territory. I ran it for 3 years. The first year, you love to travel.
Jeremy, I've heard a
Go ahead.
lot of owners talk about the salesperson that
Mhm.
they hired, and
Yep.
and then it didn't work out. And usually,
Mhm.
behind the scenes, it's because of the owner, not the salesperson. But they always say the
Mhm.
only thing they were good at selling is me to hire them. So
That is correct. That is a very common occurrence in the MSP world. Luckily, for the people who hired me, that was not true. So I did very well at that job. For the first year, I enjoyed traveling. The second year, it was okay. And the third, if you're old enough to know the A team, I was at BA Baracus. Just drug me and wake me up when I get to wherever I'm going to go, because it's a long way from Tampa down to Argentina. Okay. And they're not giving you the good planes. Let me just tell you. All right. And then for the last 3 years or so, I originally started as an operations coach at C Level. And then when C Level was purchased by Pax8, the decision was that we would now do sales coaching. And I know Rex will object, but I tell this story anyway. Is that we had a meeting. Rex said, "Hey, Pax8 wants us to do sales training and stand that up. And I need a volunteer. Thank you for volunteering, Jeremy." So, all right. And I'm ex-Navy, so I know that Navy stands for never again volunteer yourself. All right.
Oh
What
my
we've been doing.
goodness.
So that's kind of my background and why I'm on the show today.
That was
Now,
very thorough, Jeremy.
was confidence a big part of your success? I mean, you had some barriers. I mean, I love the story, and I love all the side stories about your experiences traveling to Latin
Mhm,
America. But coming into
mhm,
that industry and language, what do you
mhm.
attribute to your success in hitting your numbers and succeeding?
Okay, so two real things on that. One, um, I had really great partners, right? I was a hardware manufacturer and I was selling to MSPs. So really one of my big jobs wasn't to sell to the end user, although I went to a lot of end user meetings. My big job was to get partners to sign up and get excited about selling the equipment I was doing. And by the way, it was Wi-Fi, so this was pretty generic stuff, right? Although at the time I said mine was really special. But um, the reason I was so successful with the partners is because I'd been an MSP for 20 years and I'd had hundreds or thousands of salespeople come across my desk to try to convince me to sell them their really important piece of hardware. So when I met with partners, I knew what they were going to ask me before they did. So I had the right answers to make them get excited about selling my stuff. So that was one real advantage I had. The other advantage, which is kind of unique, you would think that not having the language was a disadvantage, right?
Yeah.
But I learned that in Latin America, they really have a different formality. So, like in Latin America, if you don't come in a jacket and a tie to a business meeting, you're incredibly underdressed. And one of the things about that formality is that they don't feel very well treated by US companies. US companies don't really understand Latin America a lot. Latin America has a ton of money, very professional. I think Americans have a bad perception sometimes of what Latin America is like. And when I would go down, because I didn't speak the language, they showed that as a bit of respect, that it was worth my time and I was on their territory. And a lot of other companies sent down people who were more Latin America, maybe came out of the Latin American community. And because I was, and I don't know if I get myself in trouble for this one on a show, but they used to call me originally. They used to call me the token gringo, and then when I got really good, they called me the useful gringo. All right.
Oh
So
my
they
gosh.
liked the fact that I came down and was willing to go to meetings where I didn't understand anything, but was attentive and did what I could. So those were the two real successes. Being respectful of the people I was selling to, always very important, and understanding the partner very well to be able to show them how what selling my stuff would really help their company and their clients.
So, Jeremy, I'd like to share a story, and I'd like to get your input on it. But um, I've often talked about a few things in my career that really changed the direction, right? Discovering the book, The E-Myth, joining a peer group, going to a solution selling class, and the ITIL Foundation certification class. I didn't really understand why, as the leader of the service department, my boss was sending me down to this selling class. But I tell you what, after I went, it made a lot more sense. And I devised a question that I started asking engineers. And, this is a great question to ask people interviewing for a sales position, but I also started asking engineers. So, picture I'm sitting across the conference table from, an applicant for a network engineer position, and I pull out my inventory, right? I've got this number 2 pencil with an eraser on it. I've got this, 10-cent throwaway Bic pen, and I've got, a more professional office pen like you might see on the CEO's desk. And I slide these across the table and I say, "This is your inventory. I'd like you to sell me something to write with." And what I found is I get really one of 3 answers. Maybe 1 out of 10 times I'll get, just a very starstruck, "I'm an engineer. Why are you asking me a sales question? I don't do sales," kind of answer. And, if I can't pull it out of them, that's just somebody I'm probably not going to hire. About 7 out of 10 times I get what I call the engineer answer, right? They pick one, they pick the heavy desk pen, the nice office pen, and start telling me all about how good it feels in your hand. It feels heavy. It writes super smooth. It has a refillable ink cartridge, right? Whatever it is. But they pick one and they start telling me why I need to buy this one. And then about 2 out of 10 times I get the answer that I'm really looking for, which is they start asking me questions about what I need a writing utensil for, right? I just simply say, "This is your inventory. I'd like you to sell me something to write with." And if they start asking me questions, especially about my pain, if they get it out of me, I'll tell them I fill out a lot of long forms, and sometimes I get to the end and I make a mistake and I have to start all over, right? And that's when the savvy engineers, even though they may not be sales trained, they'll sell me the pencil because I can erase, right? It solves my pain. And it's become one of my favorite questions because I really am looking for those engineers to be able to, even if they know they might not be selling a product, they're definitely selling their ideas and their thoughts, right? When they're talking to the partners. And I don't know, Jeremy, I just wanted to kind of get your 2 cents on thinking.
No. So here's what's really unique about that, Rex, when you tell me, because I've heard it from you before, but what's unique about it is it's not as common as it used to be, but that used to be a thing that salespeople would do, right? You'd walk in, it's become so classic that nobody uses it anymore because any good sales person who wants a job has already gone and figured it out, right? But you're the only person who I've ever seen use it for engineers. And in fact, I think that's a really unique and absolutely good thing to do, right? Is because engineers don't see them as sales, so they probably haven't figured out that's part of the interview process. And I like how you do that because engineers, as I used to say, are always your best salespeople, right? And in fact, there was a company that I probably can't name, but I used to do a lot of work for them as a sub, and they would take me out on sales calls, and I would be dressed kind of how I am now, except it would have my logo on it, right? And they'd come out with the company logo and they'd be in a button down, and we'd go out to a prospect, and anything the salesperson said they didn't believe, but anything I said to them, because I was the engineer, they believed. They had just met us, we had just been introduced, and if we had switched shirts, they wouldn't have known the difference. So engineers talking to clients about what they need is always more powerful than any salesperson or even owner talking to a thing. And in fact, I'm going to make my little pitch for Beyond now. One of the courses that I'm going to be teaching, or one of the the things I'm going to do, is I'm going to teach a thing about how to get your entire company about sales, because sales in an MSP is not just about the salespeople. It's the whole company needs to be helping with that in the appropriate ways. And we're going to be talking about that at Beyond.
That's going to be great. And I don't know, Jeremy, I'm still stuck back on something you said 5 minutes ago, is picturing you in a tie and jacket. I'm still just as flabbergasted that that's a part of your repertoire and your history at any point. But anyway, let's move on. I wanted to ask, one of the things we do on this show is we always kind of bring out a quote. Every week we have a quote. And Jeremy, we had talked about this before, and I think you had a great one to share. So would you mind sharing us our quote for the week?
Okay, now I am based in Tampa, and I apologize to all the Canadians, but I'm a huge hockey fan. Not that our team hasn't won 2 back-to-back Stanley Cups or anything, and Toronto, I'm sorry, you actually made it to the second round. Good job. All right, but my quote is, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, by Wayne Gretzky. Okay, and I think that's very clear to sales, especially in the MSP market, where a lot of owners or people who have to do the selling before you're big enough for a salesperson think that sale is a 4-letter word. Okay, and it's not comfortable, it's outside their comfort zone. They don't, it's just not really what they like doing every day. And so I hope as we talk today you get a little more comfortable with it, but the idea is if you don't ask, you're not going to be able to do it, right? So that's why I like, you miss 100% of the shots if you don't take them.
I think that's great. I want to ask Bessie, you've heard this quote before. Has that ever resonated with you for any reason?
So I mean, I've heard this quote on The Office where Michael Scott quotes Wayne Gretzky on the whiteboard. I don't know if anyone has seen that episode. So that's probably where I was first introduced to it, because I'm not a huge hockey person, even though from Chicago, and after my high school prom, the next day I went to the Hawks parade downtown. It was really fun. But I actually heard that most recently in your class, and you have a class on selling to your perfect client, and that's how you always introduce the class. And so that's where I first heard it. And I think it does make a lot of sense for our partners that are reluctant to, ask for the referral, make the call, take the shot. Rex, what do you think?
Oh, I was trying to remember the context just now, but last night I was talking to my 15-year-old about something, and literally he goes, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take," and I was like, "Hey, we're using that quote tomorrow."
I got to say that came up in a peer group conversation. Not the quote didn't come up in conversation, but I think in the peer group meeting, the conversation came around. You know what? I struggle with asking for the sale, and it was the group kind of lit up, like, yeah, I do too. We have the same thing. And there's this follow up. This is where it's at, and things kind of hang and pending. And so when I heard this, it really resonated, because I think a lot of people do experience that, whether it's they're thinking of the quote or not, but it's that asking for the business, taking the shot, presenting something. Jeremy, would you kind of see what the conversation would be like in that group?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, why do we do sales coaching, right? Because we all know that like 98% of the MSPs are really good at sales, but we're trying to help that 2% that needs us, right?
Is that the right
other way around?
That doesn't sound.
Never mind. It's the other way around. But
I know.
That's the whole idea.
Statistics are made up on the spot, so it doesn't matter what number you say. As a sales guy, right?
Absolutely. Why do you think I'm such a good salesperson?
That's exactly it. So, all right, Jeremy, I got to quiz you. You're a big hockey fan.
Oh boy.
You got this quote, Wayne Gretzky.
Okay.
So I'm going to play a little game with you here. You ready? So it's called Two Truths and a Lie. Two truths and a lie about Wayne Gretzky. Okay. So I'm going to list out 3 things, and you have to tell me which 2 are true and which one's a lie. Okay.
All right.
First one. Wayne Gretzky appeared on the soap opera The Young and the Restless. He has 6 Stanley Cups. Wayne Gretzky won MVP 8 times in a row. 2 of those are true.
I'm not sure I know the answer.
One's a lie.
All right.
I'd love to hear
you. All right. I want to say 1 is not true, but I'm sure you put it in there because it is. So I'm gonna go with 8 MVPs in a row. That's the lie.
So, yep. The lie is 6 Stanley Cups. He actually just has 4 in 84, 85, 87, and 88.
All right.
And
I should have phoned a friend.
Those of you along, I would encourage you, Google Wayne Gretzky, Young and the Restless. It is priceless. It's brilliant.
Now, Jeremy, you teach this class called Selling to Your Perfect Client. We helped developed it, and you were able to make a video that covers some of those topics. So we want to roll it in now, and it's called Selling to Your Perfect Client. So let's take a look at that video.
What we're going over today is how to sell to your perfect client. So the first thing you need to do is you need to define your perfect client. And we're going to be reviewing what does success in sales look like? Because you can't be successful if you don't have a goal in mind. We're also going to review what is the difference between marketing and sales. In our world, marketing is getting the phone to ring or getting somebody interested enough to want to talk to you. And sales is all about what you do once you speak to them, right? What are a few common marketing pitfalls that MSPs run into? They are asking the wrong question. First, they're asking, where do I look? Right? So when they do that, they typically spend money on the following things: outbound marketing, cold calling, direct mail, social media, and creating a new website. All very valid things, but they have a long-term payout and they can be quite expensive. Instead, we want to go with, who do I look for? And that means leveraging the people that your company already knows, who know your perfect client, so you can lead to faster results. Another common pitfall is that MSPs market like they want the whole world to do business with them. However, most MSPs, whether they're a $1 million MSP up to a $10 million MSP, can really only handle about 1 to 2 perfect clients a month. So who is your perfect client? And yes, they do exist. One recommendation is you would like a client with big budget and low standards. Hey, if it works and you can find them, as my mom used to say, it's good work if you can get it. But the key is here, know your sales targets. How do you define your perfect client? Characteristics you should include: how many employees they have, specific verticals, geographic distance, and annual income. Things you should not include: they value technology. They need technology to run their business. So how do you determine the characteristics of your perfect client? 1, clients that you work well with and clients that are profitable. So what do I mean by work well with? I don't necessarily mean that you like them the most, although that certainly helps. But what you want is companies that you already understand the ins and outs of their technology. So every company you work with has some specialized technology that is usually only for their industry. An example I used to use is I did endodontic offices. They were a perfect client of mine. Endodontics, not general dentistry. Why? Because when I was doing this, all the endodontic companies were moving from regular x-rays to digital. And I understood all the tricks and the trades of their specialized software and how the probes they used to take x-rays interfaced with the computers. So that meant that when I met with an endodontic, I was able to explain that. Where an MSP who had never dealt with them or didn't deal with endodontics on a regular basis would not know all the pitfalls that they should avoid and how to take care of the endodontic companies or dentists correctly. So the next thing we're going to review is, now that we've identified our perfect client, right, who it is we really want, now we're going to say, how do we establish our credentials and how do we make sure that we sound different than all the other MSPs in the world? You get into an elevator or you're at a cocktail party or some other event and somebody walks up, and one of the things they usually say is, what do you do? Do you have a good answer in those 30 seconds so that you can explain what you do? So I'm not suggesting this, but a lot of MSPs, maybe like 90%, if you ask them what they do, they're going to say, hey, we monitor all your equipment, all your technology. We make sure that if it does break, we're going to fix it right away. And by the way, we have a lot of clients that we work with who love us who would be happy to give you a referral. If that is part of your 30-second introduction, then I say to you that you all sound the same. And if you all sound the same, then now you're a commodity. And if you're a commodity, it's always a race to the bottom. And no matter how inexpensive you are, somebody is always going to be cheaper. So let's have a different conversation. right? Let's talk about the value that your company provides your clients, right? If you say keeping their computers running, it doesn't count. Because the deep, dark secret of our industry is that if the people who use their computers don't do anything, they usually run about 95% of the time. And if they rebooted them, they'd probably get to 97%. So that 3% is not a high value, which means you can't charge for it. So what can you charge for? It's not about the price you charge. It's about the value that you provide to your client. Be an accountant, not a bookkeeper. What do I mean by that? You want an accountant you hire not based on price. It's part of it, but it's not most of it. What it is mostly about is, does that accountant understand your industry? If you're a managed service provider, you're not going to hire an accountant who doesn't understand how recurring revenue works. All right? Bookkeepers just add up the numbers, right? They are cheaper, and the price of a bookkeeper matters more to you. All right? Be an architect, not a plumber. Keeping the plumbing working is important, but architects paid a lot more money to help design what the house is going to look like, or in our case, what their network infrastructure is going to provide their company. Be a CIO, CTO, not a tech. If you aren't providing good quality expertise about why a company should buy technology, then you're not providing high value. And I would suggest to you that almost all of you do provide that. You just don't understand that that's the major value you provide, and you may not be charging appropriately for it. Why you? Why should they hire you over any other managed service provider, or to be honest, any other computer repair shop? All right? So you have to offer something that's unique, appealing, and distinctive, right? That are going to be benefits beyond and above your competitors. And price is not one of them. Questions you want to ask yourself. What makes you different? Why should I choose you than any other IT security service offering the same solutions? All right? How do we do that? We set up your unique selling proposition. What does it need to be successful? It needs to be appealing and unique. It needs to include specifics that are meaningful to the client, not to you. Be brief, concise, and measurable. Be relevant, right? Important. They need to understand that you already know what their biggest pains and problems are, and you know how to solve them. And be defensible. Make sure it's something that you just, I hate to say this, make up, and something that you can prove. All right? Must include why you understand. I go back to my endodontic example. When I met an endodontic in an elevator, when I had 5 minutes of their time, whatever, I would point out that I understood that their probes back in the day needed a special card to operate in a computer. Well, the computer motherboards upgraded and the cards did not. So I knew that you had to be very careful when ordering machines for an operatory to make sure that that legacy card slot was still available on the motherboard. What does that do? It means that I immediately had credibility because I understood something that they may not even have known that was very important to them from a technology perspective. All right? Next, how do you find your perfect client? Can you explain what your company does? Do you know who your perfect client is? Now, how do you find them? Referrals. Referrals are very important. There are two main reasons that companies don't get enough referrals. One, they don't ask for them. And second, they're not specific. It is a lot different to go to a client and say, hey, do you know anybody who might know my services? Well, to be blunt, I know a lot of people. How do I know which ones might be a good fit for your services? Instead, we're going to ask them for specifics. So we're going to have a plan in place where we go to a client and we say to them, hey, I see that you know Joe, and Joe works for one of my top prospects, and I think I can really help them. Would you mind referring me and sending an email asking if I could borrow 5 minutes of Joe's time to introduce myself? when you're referred by someone, you are 4 times more likely to make a purchase. So what have we learned in our 10 minutes so far today? We've learned A, yes, there are perfect clients. There are clients that we would prefer to work with. 2, we've determined that we can really only handle 1, 2, or at most 3 new clients a month. So if that's true, we want to make sure that our limited marketing dollars and time are spent trying to get in front of and talking to our perfect clients, or the ideal ones that work best for us. The second thing that we've learned is how to define them. We don't use what I call wishy-washy words, right? Not about how they like technology or they need technology. It's how far are they from us? Are they in the right industry that we can support well? Do they have enough money to pay us? Right? These are concrete things that we can do. And finally, very briefly at the end, we learned that what a good way to get in front of these people is to ask people who already like us. And I've discovered in over 30 years that people do not usually pay you monthly if they don't like you. So you have all these clients. Most of them would love to help you. They think you do a good job. They would like you to be successful. Well, so what do we need to do? We need to ask them, and we need to be specific about who it is that we would like to be introduced to.
Well
right,
done,
so I hope
Jeremy.
Oh, well, thank you. I hope you all learned a little bit. If you'd like to learn more about selling to your perfect client, then if you see the links below, I will be doing an entire session on selling to your perfect client at Beyond. So if you want a little more, you know where to go.
And there's an instructor-led course, which I mentioned before, but I know that you've presented these topics to many partners, whether it's in the class or it's in coaching, different avenues. What are usually the biggest takeaways that partners have from this idea of selling to your perfect client?
Well, to be blunt, the thing that almost everybody gets is they actually have a perfect client. When I'm actually coaching this, I sometimes spend like 2 or 3 hours discussing and explaining to them, yes, you do have a perfect client. And so actually Rex was really good. We were on a call today, and I'm going to steal this from him. When you do sales and marketing, because you have limited time and limited money, you want to aim for the bullseye, right? Knowing you're not always going to hit it, but if you only, right, that's where you want to spend your time and energy. So that's kind of the two things, right? There is a perfect client.
I was saying there's a big target, right? And there's lots of rings, but there's a bullseye in the middle. That sales and marketing effort, you aim at the bullseye, and yeah, they're going to hit all around it, and you're going to sign clients anywhere on the target. But that perfect client is the bullseye. That's what I was
Make the
trying to
most
say.
money.
Well, right. There you go. All right.
Jeremy, I had a quick question.
Sure.
Since you're our resident sales expert, what do you do when a partner's presenting a proposal to a client? And I think we talked about the fact I hate the word quote, right? Like it just screams commodity. Sign the lowest bid, right? I just hate that. So you put all this work and energy into a proposal, which is aligned with the needs of the client, and then they say something like, oh, if you could just knock this down by 10%, I'll sign it today. Right? Like how would you deal with that?
Okay. So one, if you've presented it correctly, that question never occurs. Okay. So if you're getting that, that's a sign that you haven't actually shown all your value. So I think we're going to get into this a little later in the show, but one of the things you want to think about, and I'm going to just steal this if it comes up again, is if you go to an accounting firm, or I'll use a lawyer, right? And I hope nobody ever needs one, but if you go to a lawyer and you call the lawyer up and you say, hey, I heard you're a good lawyer and I need help. And he says, great. And the lead in from the lawyer is, I'm the cheapest lawyer in town. Does that make you want to hire the lawyer more or less? So
I'm going to go with
you're
less.
The lawyer, right, less. I hope the answer is less, right? So imagine you're about ready. The lawyer's done this proposal, given you a retainer, told you why he's going to hopefully keep you out of jail if you need one of those, or help you with your contract, which is more likely for the people watching this show, right? And you say, well, you know what? I'll hire you to be my lawyer, but you got to give me 10% off your hourly rate. Okay? The lawyer's going to go, why have you wasted my time? Right? So again, that's where you need to talk about value over cost. All right. And it is never about what you pay for something. It is the value. And I won't go into the example I use, but I think about Rolex watches. Nobody buys a $20,000 Rolex watch to tell time. Okay. And to me, and I don't mean any insult to people who like Rolex watches, I spend money on things people think are idiot or crazy too. All right. But nobody's buying a Rolex watch because, I think that's ridiculous. But to them, it's worth $20,000 of value. All right. So if you're selling yourself on value, they should never ask. And if they do ask, I would either turn it back on them and say, then obviously you don't understand how the value I'm providing your company. And I'm glad you said that, because either you're going to sign it at full price or you're not a good fit for my company, for me to help you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to tell my team that they're devalued by 10%, right? Like that just never made any sense to me. And I kind of often use the Porsche Volkswagen analogy, right? Like they're the same company, but when somebody walks into a Porsche dealer and saying, "Hey, I want to spend Volkswagen money," they don't say, "Oh, yeah, we can do that," right? They say, "Oh, well, the quality that we represent in the Porsche brand is part of why it costs a little bit more. But if you want to spend Volkswagen money, then you can go over to the Volkswagen dealership," right? And I think that analogy rings pretty true.
Yep,
Mhm.
absolutely.
I'm kind of curious, Jeremy. You've coached a lot of clients. You've talked a lot about sales. What are some of the most common obvious mistakes or ways that a partner or somebody can make quick, the biggest improvements?
Sure. So the biggest improvement you can make, first of all, identifying your perfect client would be a great start. Okay. But even more than that is the idea of how you introduce yourself. What's your 30-second introduction to somebody? All right. Because see if this sounds familiar to anybody on this call or anybody out in YouTube land listening. Somebody says, "What do you do?" And you say, "Hey, I run a managed service company." Well, what does that mean? "Oh, I can monitor all your equipment and I'll make sure that it's taken care of. If it does break, I'm going to fix it right away. And by the way, I have a bunch of clients who love me who would love to tell you how great I am. Oh, and by the way, I employ the bestest techs in the whole wide world." Okay.
And we have great
All
process.
right.
Don't
Wait,
forget we have
hold
great
on,
process.
I wanna lean into this. Yeah, Rex.
Okay.
Rex, what's another peeve? We're kind of digging into this. Yeah, but we got the best people, the best process. What's that you've talked about before?
Yeah, whenever you're talking about what makes you unique, you cannot say the best people, the best process, or the best technology, because
Right.
everybody has that.
Right. So if you sound like that, right, that's the biggest thing, right? If you sound like that, what are you? Remember, you're dealing with uneducated consumers who are not used to making this buying decision. So you sound all the same. And if you sound all the same, what are you?
The same.
Commodity.
A commodity. See, somebody's been paying attention. Right.
I've been in your class so many times. This is how I'm.
You had to do it. I knew you knew, Bessie. I knew.
Well,
Client versus customer, quote versus proposal, collect tax versus charge tax, right? Like, no, you're a customer.
And we've got this question in class before. I think it's a good one to put you back on the spot, Jeremy. Someone said, like, can you give me an example? Like, what makes Pax8 Academy unique? What would your 30-second explanation be for us?
All right, so let's talk about Pax8 and what makes us unique, right? One, we meet the client, we meet our partners where they are, right? Do you need on-demand training? Do you need instructor-led training? Do you want a peer group, or do you want one-on-one coaching? Right? So we're pretty unique in the industry that we offer all four ways for you to get educated, right? And some of them are included just because you're a Pax8 partner, which, by the way, if you want on-demand training, it is free to sign up as a Pax8 partner, and you get access to it all, right? So there's that. And then if I'm talking about coaching specifically, right, and because I still do some sales calls, we have that. I literally think thousands of processes documented, both for operations and for sales, right? But what makes us unique? Because a lot of people can have that. The difference is, one, we won't just sell you the documentation. Clients have come to me and said, listen, I don't need coaching. Just give me all your documents. And what we say is our documents without our coaches are not really useful. So we won't do that.
Mm.
The second thing we say is every one of our coaches has a minimum of 20 years experience in the industry, and most of them have 30. By this place, I do have to put a disclaimer. All the coaches would like me to tell you they started at age 10. Okay? Just have to put that in there. All right? But that's our
That's good.
secret sauce, if you will, right? Is that we take these people who have amazing experience. And when I mean experience, well, secret, thank you.
Secret
Oh, visual.
sauce.
Look at that. Thank you, Vanna. Thank you. Right? Is that we have these experience, and these are coaches. Like if you're a sales coach for Pax8, you have 20 to 30 years experience selling in MSPs. These are not just generic salespersons. They've been selling MSPs. If these are ops coaches, then they are coaches who have either been service managers for many years or have owned their own companies and transitioned out as MSPs, right? And the combination is incredibly powerful because you get the documentation. This is where I have to also disclaim, I was a salesperson who thought processes for other people, and I have been corrupted. Rex corrupted me. I've agreed that there is process that you should use in sales, right? So you're going to get a sales process documented, right? And you're going to get the experience to help you. And so that's really what makes us unique.
That's so that I think that feeds into, well, it's a part about myths and fables about sales. And I want you to talk about one of the courses you have on Jeremy's Fables. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So we've started a new on-demand course. So again, if you're a Pax8 partner, you go look at it. No additional fees. And it's called Jeremy's Fables. Now, the reason why it's called Jeremy's Fables, and it's called Jeremy's Fables, inspire your sales practice. But I do have to kind of put myself in a little bit of trouble here. So during COVID, my wife, who's a librarian, was home. And so she got to hear me talk because, one, you can tell I'm pretty loud, and two, the walls in my house are pretty thin. And after one of my calls, my wife comes storming in and says, "Who the heck else are you married to?" Now, I've been married to the same woman for over 33 years. And I go, "What do you mean?" And she goes, "I heard all these examples you used about things your wife said, and I've said none of them. So who else are you married to?" All right. So that's kind of how
You're making things up, Jeremy.
No, excuse me. There's always a germ of truth in everything I say. Okay. All right. So that's why Amanda, who came up with this for us, came up with that title. And what they are, I don't know if you can put it up, but what these on demand is going to, this new course, on-demand course is going to be, it's going to be things that talk about examples that I've given that I don't have time to do on the show, right? About why you shouldn't chase whales, right? How to talk to people, how to be unique, how to separate yourself. So if you're interested in it, please go to Pax8 Academy on demand and take a look, and hopefully you'll find it useful. And by the way, just in case you're waiting, there's a little preview. This is only volume 1. Volume 2 will be coming out later this year.
Jeremy, I had an ops coaching client. Yeah, Jeremy, I had an ops coaching client that got so enamored with this whale, and I literally begged him to not chase it. Like, it's gonna, your company isn't ready to support a company like that. And I begged him, and it wasn't very long after he got the client that he lost that client, but also half of the other clients he already had, and he wasn't a coaching client for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years. And then I kept giving him free advice over the years because I just felt so bad for him. And it took years before he got back to where he was before he took that client. And It broke my heart when he took it.
No,
Not all
it's
revenue
true.
is good revenue.
Not right. And by the way, one of the other things I train on, you're not in the revenue business. You're in the profit business. So when I'm talking to our coaching
Oh, I like
clients, I
it.
say, look,
Ooh.
if you sign $1 million client a month, right? You're like, oh, $1 million, but it costs you 1.25 million to service them a month. That's not a client. It's a charity case. Okay.
But can't they make it up
So-
in volume, Jeremy?
No. Have you taken
I think we have this slotted for a quote on a future show, but revenues for vanity, profits for sanity, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh,
Absolutely.
I like that.
Absolutely.
I like that a lot.
And that's where I think I'm kind of bringing it a little bit back to your perfect client where people are sometimes surprised, like, oh, 1 or 2 new clients a month. What if when I'm much bigger, I'm going to need like 4, 5, 6 new clients a month? But why is that, Jeremy, that they still stay with that 1 to 2 new
Okay, so
clients
that's
a
one of the
month?
things I talk about, right? Thank you for bringing that up, Bessie. Is that if you're a $1 million MSP or even a $10 million MSP, you can really only onboard 1 or 2 of your perfect or ideal clients. Now, obviously, a $10 million MSP has a different definition than a $1 million MSP. But the reason why is it's really hard to onboard clients. So you operationally can't take more. And so if I sprinkled by the way, you didn't ask me to rate myself on how good a salesman I am, 1 to 10.
Yeah.
The obvious answer is 10, because any good salesman thinks they're the best one in the world, right?
11.
So imagine I took my
Well,
little pixie dust and gave it to you, and you closed every person you ever talked to, right? And you were closing 5, 10, 20 clients a month. You'd be out of business in 6 months, right? Because you couldn't handle onboarding them and you would just make people mad. So instead of when you talk and do marketing, right? You have limited time, limited budget. You can only handle 1 or 2, maybe 3 a month. So how about we concentrate on getting the 3 we really want instead of like 10 we don't want? Okay.
And when you
Yeah,
get
and
so much bigger, yeah.
I've seen a good
When you get
sales
so much-
department, very service department, and then one of the things I tell the service managers when the companies get to where they're ready to hire a salesperson, I say, service manager, you've had the luxury of being able to tell the owner to slow down when you start to get underwater, but as soon as you have a commissioned salesperson on the team, you cannot say salesperson, living your wallet gets stuffed by commission, you need to slow down. And it was a big realization for me as a service executive. And I think it's something that a lot of service managers aren't ready for.
Right. Well, and one of the things I tell people is that the purpose of a sales department is to make the operations department cry, but not to crush them. Right. I want the service manager to complain constantly. Oh my God, I can barely keep up with all the sales. But if you overwhelm them, and you crush them.
I totally agree. We're kind of getting short on time. I did want to give you an opportunity to talk about just real quickly about your other venture here.
Okay. So yes, thank you, Rex. So I coach another company, not just MSPs. It is actually a distillery, 82 West. Please go to our website, 82west.com. It is a local distillery. Everything is made, thank you, is made on site. We make 14 rums, 1 gin, and a bourbon. All right. And I got involved just because I was hanging out there a lot. And like any company, they were struggling with sales a little bit. And I was able to kind of help and work with the owner and coach him up so that we did some stuff. And I negotiated the best deal I could. I drink for free. So
there you go.
There you go. I think, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say, I think one of the coolest things is, we take all this business coaching and how to run the business better and grow and mature your business that we've designed around all these MSPs, and you kind of transplanted it straight over to the distillery, and you're helping them grow, kind of using all the exact same methodologies.
Absolutely. Help with operations, help with sales. It's been really nice. And the only problem is, guys, we do not ship. It's against the law. So if you want to try it, please come on down to Tampa and I'll be happy to buy you around.
Yeehaw.
I'll be there.
Love that,
Jeremy,
Jeremy.
have any final thoughts or anything we missed that you were kind of itching to talk about?
Just one thing. I've gone over 2 of the things I'm going over beyond. I'm actually doing a third, and it's talking about how you can sell cyber security to your clients, because that's a big deal about how to get them to do it. And we talk about how to use cyber insurance as a kind of entrance way into that conversation, because nobody really wants to buy insurance. Nobody wants to pay for security, even though we all know they really need it. So instead of you being the bad person, right? Oh, you need this? Make the insurance company the bad person. They already don't like their insurance company. So
Way to sell
we'll
it,
talk
Jeremy.
about that in a little bit.
Awesome.
Right.
Jeremy, well, we're so excited to see you at Beyond. And I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for coming on our show and for talking to us about sales and giving some people some practical tips that they can hopefully go and implement for their business. So thank you, Jeremy, so much. Now, thank you all so much for watching. Next week, we'll be bringing on Amanda Glidden. She'll be talking about educational enlightenment and beyond. So she's been working with me closely and our team on getting everyone ready for their presentations at Beyond. So I'm really excited to have her and to hear more about that. So again, thank you for watching. Remember, we are live every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain. You can like and subscribe us and on our YouTube channel, and we'll see you next week. Rex, we'll close us out.
As always, I'd like you to think about, what nugget you got today and what are you going to do differently tomorrow. But I would say today, if you haven't signed up for Beyond, you should. Thanks a lot, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.